Hello and welcome to Read Scholars Live. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Fleming, and current president of Read Scholars. Today, we are joined by Dr. Uchenna Umeh, who is a practicing pediatrician and the medical director and CEO of Dr. Lulu's Youth Health Center in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing just good. I gave you thumbs up for saying my name correctly. Oh my
I
God.
practiced.
The reason for that, Dr. Lulu girl, I was like, if y'all can't say my name wrong, say Dr. Lulu, okay? But you got it right. I love that. Say it. You said it correctly. Uchenna Umeh is correct. That's correct.
Thank you. I did practice. But it's not that hard. You just gotta pay attention.
Okay. Okay. Romanowski and all that, we got those. So yeah, Umeh is not too bad, but
Not too bad.
I love it.
Well, how are you? How is life finding you in Texas right now?
I love it. I mean, the weather just got a little bit cooler, and I'm just recuperating from my surgery. So, I can't complain. I like it. Life is good. It's as good as it can.
Indeed.
I have three Black sons in America today. So I know how good is it really, but it's good enough. Every day, you just pray the ancestors just watch over their babies, and
Yes,
that's what we can do.
that's all we can do. Well, your life trajectory is quite interesting. So I always like to give the listeners a little bit background about our guest. And so take us back a little bit. You're from Nigeria, did your training here in DC, right? And then decided to do pediatrics, and you have a special interest in mental health and pediatrics. So take us back a little bit about why medicine? Why did you decide to move to the States? And how did you get into this niche? And, you can kind of pick up a little few things along the way because you didn't go straight. You kind of went around the bend a few times, right?
I like it, and the only question I have for you is how much time you got. Because I'm only 52 years old in March, so honey, that's 52 years worth of stories you want me to cramp
Well,
into.
give us the medium version. Don't give us too short. Don't give us the medium
I
one.
gave my best shot. So I did always want to be an architect, and then on a dare-ish, my dad was like, architecture? Oh no. Why don't you become a pharmacist? That's like more feminine. I'm like, pharmacy? Why don't I go for medical school then if I'm going to be a pharmacist? He was like, yeah, but your cousin is a pharmacist. I was like, yeah, but I don't want to be a pharmacist. I want to be an architect. So if I'm not going to be an architect, I'll become a doctor. So literally was like, well, let's see. And I was like, well, let's see. And so that's kind of how I went to med school. But I love kids. And so people are always like, oh my God, you're going to be a pediatrician, because every time I say chat, I want to stop and I want to hug and love on them. And so it was a natural progression for me to become a pediatrician. Hence the word momatrician is mom and pediatrician together. So if you Google that word, you're going to find my picture on Google.
It.
Now, coming to pediatrics, so I did my medical school in Nigeria, and then I came to Howard. HU, we're Bisons. Okay, Kamala Harris. Hello.
I know, yeah.
Nice. Okay, we're about to go to the White House. But I essentially went to Howard, did my residency, and then I started my practice right away. I got married, had my first born son, and then started my practice. My practice was the second child. So my son came, and then the practice came. My son was born in May. The practice came in April of the next year. And I just didn't look back. I love private practice, love being my own boss. I learned every single thing on the job, because they don't teach you the business of medicine during medical school or even in residency. So I learned how to fall very, very flat on my face multiple times and just get up and just say, I got it. You learn how to do that very quickly.
Right.
And then 13 years into the practice, I kicked out my office manager, who happened to be my ex-husband.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you file for divorce. You fire the manager and then you file for divorce. I don't know which came first. I had to save myself. I was dying in the marriage. And when I realized, one day I woke up at night and drenched in sweat, like literally picked up a pair of scissors. As a doctor, I know what to do on the left side of the chest, but I also lived in South Carolina, and I know it's a death penalty state. And I know my kids will never hear the story. You know how they say the story of, if you will never hear the story of a lion if the hunter tells it.
Right.
So I knew that killing him was not going to work. and I'm not a killer. I'm just a very, very domestically abused woman that needed to get out or die, literally. So I got
Wow.
out of the marriage the way I knew how. And the only thing I asked the judge, whose brother happened to be a pediatrician in the same town, I
Oh,
said,
wow.
all I ask you is please, I want full custody of my boys. That's all I want. Anything else, I just want full custody of my boys. And they were 9, 6, and 3. And I was like, I need my children. That's all I want. I needed them to be raised my way. And the reason I filed for divorce was because the middle son, who was 6, came home one day after eating dinner and tossed the plate at me because he saw that as the way to
Wow.
treat the woman in the house, the only female. I was like, no, he's not. It's not his fault. He didn't teach himself that behavior, but I'll make sure he
Right.
doesn't do that. And so
Yes.
you make decisions and you stick with them. So I was like, I'm going to do this by myself. And so I did the practice alone for a couple of years. And I got burned out. I was seeing 60 patients a day, 40, 60 patients a day. It was very
Mm,
busy. I grew from one patient to 6,000. I grew from one location to 2 locations, from one employee to 13 employees. It was thriving, but I was dying.
right. Right.
And then also you get into this space of you're a divorced woman, you can't even stay married. Oh, and as a Nigerian, what did he do? What could he have done? No one
Right.
asked you what happened to you. No, what did you know? So I needed to get out of the whole space of the Carolinas anyway. So one of my sons, the same middle son, said, wasn't grandpa in the Air Force? I was like, yeah. I said, maybe you could join the Air Force. I mean, literally, we had a roundtable discussion. I was like, you know what?
Wow.
Maybe I could. And so I asked one to check the Marines, one to check the Army, one to check the Navy, and I'll check the Air Force. And let's see what's the cutoff age, like literally. And then the Air Force was like 42, and I was turning 42 in March. And that was
Wow.
that was Martin Luther King weekend of that year. I was 41 and 10 months. So I quickly applied for the Air Force and I got in. And like literally I came in as a lieutenant colonel. Like I was like, what?
Wow.
And they're like, oh yeah, so since you're lieutenant colonel, you're gonna be commander. I said, commander of who? How? Why? So literally I learned on the job how to be everything.
That's
They taught me
amazing.
how to walk and how to talk like a commander and how to be a commander, how to just breathe commander. Like in 2 days, crash course. They got people to do
Wow.
that for me. Like boom. I was like, okay. And I was so good and so effective as a commander. The general coined me for leadership. And I was like, okay. And my dad came as a guest of honor because he's a retired 2-star general. So he was a guest of honor at my passing out parade. That was a big deal for me. And I was
Right.
commanding the parade. And it was just so good,
Amazing.
you know, and just the way life just works out. And I was stationed, I said, I want to be stationed in a place where I can teach because I have all these years of experience. I want to teach medical students and residents. And they're like, you know what? I think San Antonio will be good. I said, well, let's go there. So that's how I ended up in
Wow.
San Antonio.
Wow.
And I
That's
became
amazing.
medical director. And then, but after 4 years, it was like, okay, so we need you to go to Florida as the SG, which is the Surgeon General of the hospital. And I was going to become a full bird, a full colonel. I did my air war college. I was ready to be a full bird. And they were like, you need to be a full bird. You need to retire as a full bird. You're going to get all these benefits. But my eldest son was going to college.
Wow.
He was going to go to Stanford over there on the West Coast. And here's his mama being sent to Florida, to Destin, Florida, to the Air Force Base called Tyndall Air Force Base. And as a mother, you make that call. And when you pull the plug, you pull it. So I was like, Air Force, my son,
Yeah.
obviously you know who won. Got out of the Air Force, I got an honorable discharge. I got a disability, as a matter of fact, because I dealt with suicidal ideations the whole time. I just felt I was a failure, even as I was excelling. I just kept telling myself, yeah, but you failed. That fact that I was a divorcee, I could not get it out of my head because in Nigeria, you're supposed to stay in your marriage. My
Hmm.
auntie died in her marriage because she stayed. And even at that, I was the chief bridesmaid at that wedding. I still kept telling myself, you should have stayed. Even as I know what the inevitable. So life is so weird. So I was really actively suicidal in 2015.
Wow.
And then I came home one day and I told my wife, I said, that's it. I almost drove off the highway today. I was going 85 miles an hour, no seatbelt on. The rooftop of my convertible was down. I
Oh
was
my
looking for
gosh.
movement. I was trying to get gone. And I know, looking back, that if I had succeeded, my father would never utter the word suicide because it's a taboo. It's a shame. It's like a stigma. My children will never forgive themselves that they didn't pick that their mom. You know what I mean? All of these things. But most importantly, when I said that those words to her, she called off work for the week. She was like, "No, not on my watch. We gotta fix this. No, no, please wait." You know. And then I went to see the doctor, and the first thing the doctor did was put me on an antidepressant. Well, guess what? That made me worse.
Mm,
And then that's my own story. But before that, in the year 2000, a friend of mine had killed herself. She was
mm.
doing, she was a doctor. She was a resident. She killed herself 2 weeks after she had been coming to me to check up on her. But I was pregnant with my middle son. So that's my excuse for not calling her. I was like, yeah, I'm going through some changes. I'll call her later. In my mind, I had the conversation. The day I called, her niece said, "Oh, and so blew her brains out 2 weeks ago."
Oh
That's what
my
she,
goodness.
yeah. And so I went into labor instantly for that with that boy. And he was born at 7 months because of that story of that's oh my God, suicide. What do you mean? Like I should have called her. I know she was coming to me. She was asking me to call her. And then 8 years later, I had a patient come to see me. He was 15 years old with his mother. His mom was like, Dr. Umeh, check him for drugs. Because I know it's got to be drugs. There's no reason why
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want to play football. Look, people are coming to look at him. Recruiters are coming for him. He's so good. There's got to be something else going on. He was very depressed. He was suicidal. And I told his mom was like, "That's all just depression?" I was like, "Well, listen, if it's just depression, I got this. Because I'm depressed, my mother's depressed, my sister, we're going to be fine." Took her keys, left the office, and never saw
Wow.
him again. On the 4th of July of that year, he put a double barrel shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger in front of his family.
Wow.
That was my first patient suicide. You'd think I would have learned by then. No, 2018, a 7-year-old patient
Mm.
came to see me with his mother. He had tried to hang himself twice. I was like, okay, God, I hear you. What is it you want me to do? And my baby son, he was like, well, Mom, so what you gonna do about it? Because I came home looking buzzed. He said, that you look like you saw a ghost. I said, yes, I literally saw one.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So he said, Mom, you can come and speak at my school. Maybe you can come to my school and speak. I was like, yes.
Wow.
So that's how my speaking career was born. And so my first book has him on the cover
Wow.
because I was like, let's talk about this. And so it's not quite a straightforward story, but that's when I was like, you know what, guys, the folks that I work with, I say, guys, can I have one day off per week, please, so I can go talk at schools because I feel this calling. And after 3 weeks, they were like, no, we need you to work here. I was like, no, you don't.
Mm.
Deuces. So that's kind of how that whole suicide was born. Just
Wow.
looking at why would a 7-year-old child want to kill himself? And so now, 2 years later, I found the answer, and it's not what most people think. Most people think is mental illness, but mental illness as an entity mostly talks about depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar. Most children that kill themselves have been betrayed
Mm.
by adults around them. They have been betrayed by the bullies in the school. They have been betrayed by sexual assault and domestic violence and racism and toxic relationships.
Right. Right.
And they blame themselves. Remember, when you're a child, you blame yourself for anything that happens. When you're an adult, you blame others. But that's what happens with kids. They feel betrayed, or they feel disappointed, or they feel like they have nowhere to go. They feel unloved. They feel invisible. And so they're like, you know what? I'm going to start cutting or whatever, join a gang or whatever, and then spiral out of control. And before you know it, we'll just come home one day and just find a gun because their dad has one.
Mm-hmm.
Or forget the gun, they have a belt, they have a jump rope. So all of these things are usually just household items that the kids use, mainly because there's a toxicity around them that's not being addressed. And so while mental illness is one of the 19 reasons, it's not the top reason. The
Yeah.
top reason is relationship issues. The kids feel like their mom doesn't love them, or they're being abused by their father or their mother's boyfriend or their cousin, or the church looks down
Right.
on them because they're LGBT, or they're
Exactly.
owned by their parents because they're LGBT. Whatever it is, the root is trauma versus mental illness, which mental illness can be treated with medication. Trauma is
Mm.
treated with what happened, what is this trauma, and how can we untraumatize you. So it's two different things altogether. And so my promise to the universe is to make sure every single person hears the real reason why kids kill themselves, so that you're not too busy saying, well, fix my child. And then what do? I give the child medication. But what I'm doing is saying to the child that it's your fault
Mm.
because I need to fix you. But if that child is being molested by their uncle and they're acting out as a result, what am I doing to the child? Essentially, I'm saying, be quiet, say no more. And they're not going to say anything. And then tomorrow, so no wonder in the United States, at least I know these numbers, the last 4 years, prescription strength antidepressants use has quadrupled, more than
Yep.
quadrupled.
Yep.
But in the last 3 years, suicide rates have tripled. So we must not have the answer.
Right.
So my work is to try to get people to understand that suicide is about shame and silence and stigma, and trauma is at the epicenter. And it's much more than mental illness. It's bigger than mental illness. When we had the dot-com burst, when we had the what's that place, Enron scandal,
Yes. Yep. Yep.
we
Yep.
had 30,000 men that jumped to their deaths. They didn't have mental illness the day before, but they lost all of their life savings the day after. So make the connection with the real reason why you feel worthless, you feel helpless, you feel like a failure, like I did. And so thank God I walked my talk. So I'm not just some random doctor just saying, no, this is something that I have experienced myself. So while I'm not thankful that people have killed themselves, I'm thankful that for me, these things happen to me, or for me rather, so I can now live fully in my purpose, which is to bring the knowledge of the fact that maybe you also, who's listening to me right now, what is your role in that child, that neighbor, that kid that you know there's a lot of trauma in their house, but he's like, oh, it's none of my business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think the conversation is even more pressing when we talk about trauma and change, immediate changes in life circumstances, right? And so I think one of the questions and one of the things we've talked about a lot in the pediatric population, especially, but also other vulnerable populations, is as COVID happened, and now we're in the house with the people who might abuse us, traumatize us, molest us. And then what do we do? If, and like you said, sometimes you are a family member, a friend, you might know these things are going on, and now it's amplified, right? And what is our role as outsiders, if you will, but also what are the risks when we now have this new trauma in 2020 with already vulnerable population. So, how have you been trying to negotiate that?
And so I think the bottom line is to go back into the days for the Christians, for those who have read the story of the creation of the earth, of the world. I'm a scientist, and every now and again I butt heads with the Bible because I'm like, wait, how? But here's that part that we both agree. We all agree on the fact that it took God 7 days to build the world. And then when he was done, he looked at the world and he said, it was good.
Mm,
He pronounced it as good. You and I are the ones that find the not good.
Mm.
or make it ungood for a child who was born weighing 6 to 8 pounds and happy and trusting at 16 months and trusting at 4 maybe, and then at 5 their uncle molests them. And like you said, now we have COVID and we're all homebound, and now the toxicity. I actually was, and I don't know, I don't want to regret it, but I did post on my Facebook page when they shut down the schools. I said there's a child out there who is breathing a sigh of relief because their bully at school
Cool. Right.
is no longer going to be there, completely blindsided by the fact that, wait, what if the bully, of course, is at
Oh.
home? So what I could have written is, except, of course, if the toxicity is at home, which a lot of times it is. And so first secret that I found is, if you are in a domestic environment, right, a domestic violence environment, one thing you could do is you could pick up the phone right this moment and dial 9 freaking 11 and order pizza.
Mm.
Hello, 911, what's your emergency? Hi, my name is Dr. Lulu. I live in, you give your address. I would like to order pepperoni pizza. 911 operator knows you don't call 911 to order pizza. But I just gave you my address. I need you to hurry or please, we're hungry. That's all you need to say. The 911 operator knows to read between the lines.
Mm.
You got to get out of it. If you're the neighbor, if you're the friendly cousin, let me tell you, if that child dies, you will never forgive
Mm.
yourself for not stepping in when you coulda, woulda, shoulda. It takes a village to raise a child, but I say it takes a village to save a child.
Mm.
We were all made, when God created Adam, he said, you know what? Let me make a helper for this individual. I see that as you and I. You can see that if you want to be close minded, as it must be marriage. No. I see it as God said, we need each other. So I'm going to
Okay.
create someone else as your helper. And you know what? Studies have shown that formerly suicidal teens who can identify one single trusted adult in their life will thrive. So
Mm.
every time a child or a teenager kills themselves, that tells me and you that they could not find one.
Mm.
And that's why the hashtag be the one for went viral. They want you to be the one. So the work is already done. We already know our work has been given to us. Whether they say the mission, if you accept it, that's what they tell 007.
That is what they say.
It says your mission, if you accept it, if you choose to accept it, is to be the one for the youth and for the kids around you. If you see it happening, because then it becomes trauma that propagates more trauma. In the Black community specifically, we have all this Jesus, 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 which nothing wrong with Jesus, but
Right.
even Jesus himself fell not once, not twice, but 3 times. And at one point he could not get up and they had to get help. They ordered Simon of Cyrene to come and carry the cross for Jesus because they didn't think he would make it to Golgotha. So I need people to realize when they're calling Jesus, which Jesus are you? Jesus, the man, struggled. He said,
Mm.
Father, if it is your will, take this chalice. Jesus was 100% man and 100% God.
Mm.
And you are man. Hold on to the fact that he also asked for help. He reached out and said, Father, we don't want to ask for help for nothing because we look at shame. But I can't read your mind.
Right.
If you don't tell me what's going on with you, even if it's strep throat, I can't make the right diagnosis. So I need people to ask for help. And the church is very good at condemning. I can say this because I'm a Christian. We condemn. But let me tell you something. Last year, we had a prominent pastor kill himself.
Mm.
Why do you think he did that? He also struggled with demons. But I bet you he was not even allowed to. He didn't want to look like, well, I should be the pastor. If Jesus lived in this day and time, we would probably diagnose him with something in the mental health arena. You know why? He frequently got in a boat and went to a quiet place. What do you think he was doing then? He was saying, time out. I need a breather.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't give ourselves that.
Yes.
We don't give ourselves that. So we need to be each other's keepers. If there ever been a time when we needed to be each other's keepers, is now. And just forget all of the negativity, which of course is hard.
It
because
does.
there's racism and it's real.
Yes. I know we talk a lot about those of us who try to be everything for everyone at all times. And that's a lot of weight to bear, and we need to reassess and understand how to give each other grace, how to ask for help, like you said, how to lean on others. And I try to remind my friends, like, and I try to remind myself too, like, there are days I can't do it. I can't be everybody's everything every day. And I need a timeout, and that's okay. And that doesn't make me less than, that doesn't make me, weak. That doesn't make me a bad doctor, a bad person. It just means I'm human and I need a day, and that's okay.
And no is a complete sentence, baby girl, okay? You don't
Yes.
have to say a no. And when you learn how to say no to yourself, then you learn how to say no to others, because not everything that we do, and especially those thoughts, like the negative, intrusive thoughts, when they start coming, we have to learn how to say no. I'm not a bad person. I am good enough.
Yes.
You want to know why? Well, how much time you got? I did this, I did. You have to learn how to tell yourself that, because imposter syndrome and all the negative, intrusive thoughts, that's your amygdala going on overdrive, reminding you of, but yeah, but what about, we want to hold on to the negatives.
Yes.
We have to learn to let go
Yes.
and let God for those, who are God people.
Yeah. So I know I can't keep you too long, and I want to talk about one more thing. So, as a woman who has reinvented yourself several times, now you have this new practice, right? Well, it's not new, I guess, anymore. But tell people a little bit how you made. I mean, you gave us a little bit of a backstory, but um, why you decided to design your practice is unique, right, for a specific population. So, give us a little bit about just how that evolution happens. How do you be an entrepreneur, right? Because that's kind of like first step, and then why you set it up, how you did to serve the population that you wanted to target.
And so I'm already a pediatrician. I had already owned my own practice where I saw kids age 0 to 21. So, I did that, and I like to think it was successful, even though, I ended up selling it. I have to keep telling myself that I saved a lot of lives, and some of my relationships are still on. So I'm already a pediatrician. I've already tested the waters on running my own business. And so there's something called direct primary care, which basically means you have, like, literally have direct access to me, the doctor. There's no insurance company. There's no middleman. There's no front office, no back office. You call my cell phone and you get me. And literally, I'm like, hello. They're like, is that? I'm like, yes. Oh, that's the doctor? Yes, that's the doctor. Like, it takes a minute to kind of get over it. So, but direct primary care it's about 10 years old. It's a bunch of doctors who just decided, you know what, want to take back medicine. We want to do it our own way. Some of my friends do house calls. Some of my friends do, well, before the COVID, they
Before.
do home visits. They do IVs at home. We're now telling patients that for a small nominal fee, you can have access to me 24/7. And there's nothing as good as knowing that you have access to the doctor. They don't even use it as much. I have to be like, so how is she doing? Like, oh my God, she's doing so much better. Because I now kind of became a life coach for the
Mm.
teenagers. So I just give them goals when they call me, like, oh my God, I want to kill myself. I say, okay, before we talk tomorrow, why don't you call 5 of your friends and,
Mm.
and tell them that Dr. Lulu said, what can you do to make their day better?
Oh, wow.
And 9 times out of 10, by the third friend, they're like, I felt so much better. I said, because I'm taking that negative intrusive thought from your head onto helpfulness. So the opposite of helplessness is helpfulness.
Yes.
Now, hopelessness is hope. But the way to give someone hope is to set a goal. So when it's hopelessness, I say, set a goal, set achievable goals, small goals, tiny goals, plant a garden, write on your journal, adopt a pet, just something to put your mind to, because a lot of times suicidal ideations come at you. They come, and then if you let them stay, you can build and get big. Or if you find something to do. So one of my books is going to be called 100 Things to Do Before You Jump.
Mm.
You can even just fold your socks drawer. Just anything, colorful, get out of the house, go for a walk. By the time you come back, you will be feeling different. And just empower yourself. Just allow yourself to, but you got to know that when those thoughts come, this is what to do. So write it down. Here's what I'm going to do, because they will come, because it comes from a history of trauma, remember? I can't get to the 5-year-old that way. but I can get to the 5-year-old's parent.
Mm.
The youngest child to die by suicide in the world was 5. So I go with 5-year-old. And that's because we know that 5. We don't know how many more. So my practice is so unique that when the patients call, they get to me. And I'm so thankful it is, because I've had a patient who called me one time who was screaming on the phone, Dr. Lulu, I need help. I was like, what? All I could think was, I said, get out of, I screamed, get out of the house, get out of the house. And then I got out of my house, which is crazy. And I went out physically, I pulled him and just, and he came, they went out. So I said, okay, what's going on? He said, I just need help. I said, okay, you know what? I want to see you in the next, I said, how soon can you get to me? He said, 15 minutes. I said, good. I'll see you at 3 o'clock. It was 15 minutes. And he came to me, and I completely forgot that at 3 o'clock, his parents had an appointment with me. His parents happened to have an appointment with me. And as soon as he walked in the room, his mother was like, that's all she did. And I looked and I saw he had fresh rope marks. He had just tried to hang himself. So, honey, I will give them my cell phone number. Because he didn't call his mother. He didn't call his father. He called me. So I believe that this is the path that I was born to take, and just keep on doing it. And knock on wood, none of my patients none of them has. They're all thriving.
Yeah.
So thank God. I don't have a lot of patients, but you know what? I only need one, and that's okay.
That's all right. Well, as we close, you have given us many pearls of wisdom in the course of these past few minutes, but I usually like to, end on something uplifting and optimistic. So what would you like to leave our listeners with as, we transition through this? I don't know what we're calling it now, the new normal. And as we hopefully at some point soon transition to the other side, what are you hopeful for, or what advice do you want to give anybody who's listening that might be struggling, or anybody, again, who's got a family member that might be, or a friend that might be struggling? What are your words you'd like to leave us with today?
The eyes are the window to your soul. I've never heard a more truthful proverb. Since we started wearing masks, that's all you see.
Yeah.
So I want you to look into people's eyes. Start doing that. Start looking into people's eyes and actually really truly asking them how they're doing, really truly meaning it. Because now you can't see my face, but you can tell when I'm smiling. You can tell when I'm troubled.
Yeah.
So if your eyes are truly the window to your soul, then I say start looking into people's eyes. And also empower yourself. A year ago, I went to a doctor's office to go talk about my practice, and my practice was still brand new. I'll never forget that. I walked in and I said to the lady, I said, I would like to talk to the doctor about my practice, and this is what I do. This is who I do it for, teenage patients who are suicidal. I want to, and I'm just now getting licensed as a life coach, so I'm so excited. But here's the thing. So I said, so may I use the restroom? She's like, oh, sure. She said, it's over there. So I walk into the restroom. That was my 11th practice I had stopped for that day. I was tired. But I had on these high heel suede green shoes with a gold trim. And I walk into the restroom, and the sound of the heels was like, was very confident. I walked up to the mirror and I looked at myself and I winked and I said, girl, you're killing it. That was all I said. I don't know where that came from, but since that day, I've been riding on a high. So you need to tell yourself you're good enough. I said to myself, I see you, girl. You're good. You're killing it. You're literally doing this. Like, look what you're doing. You need to elevate yourself, and your own vibration will elevate others. Misery loves company. That's what they say, right?
That's what they say.
Elevate your own vibration, and you elevate it. I'm not saying that you always be high, because sometimes there's a name for that.
Yeah.
But I want you to be able, give yourself the grace, like you said. Give yourself grace to elevate your own self. When the Black Panther died, I wrote on Facebook, I said, guys, I'm not doing good. I'm not doing good.
That's a rough day.
For me, that was my last straw. I cried for a whole day. My sister called me from Nigeria. She said, girl, you're crying more than the Black Panther's family. I said, you know what? I've been needing to cry. I've been needing to cry. All of the mess from Black Mamba to the Black Panther. I was done. I was like, I have been needing to cry. But I told my Facebook, I said, look, and then they were like, I don't know, 1,000 comments all telling me, oh my God, we're sending you. But so I need you to be okay to say you're not doing okay today. It's completely fine.
Mm,
It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. And
mm.
I think that's what I'm going to leave you guys with.
I think that's perfect. That is very perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will put all your social media information in our listeners' notes so if people are looking for you, they know where to find you. But
I
please,
have a class I'm teaching next week.
yes,
It's on
so you want to tell
it's
people?
called Parenting Without Yelling.
Oh,
I
wow.
know I was raised by yelling parents, and I like to say I'm a yelling parent in recovery. I don't do that anymore, but now I know better. It took one of my sons to say something to get my attention. He said, Mom, I was disappointed because after the divorce, he thought I was going to be, and I
Mm,
yelled at them at every chance I got. So I'm teaching a class. It's simply called Parenting Without Yelling. Look it up. You can find it. Find me on Facebook. My teaching is free, completely free, because I know we're all stressed out. And if you were not a yeller, you're now yelling because now you're teaching in school also. So, anyways, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you for real.
thank you so much. And you take care of yourself. I hope your recovery continues to go well.
I will.
Thank you for listening to Read Scholars Live. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel.